Good Thursday, everybody. Yes, once again, it is that time. Day 4 with the man, Frank Scalish, and Matt Pangrak, live from Tulsa. It is day 4. Frank, how you doing, man?
Good. I'm doing great, actually.
You caught a few fish yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Maybe too many. I have to film a show today after this show, and I don't know. I might have done some damage.
All right, probably not. Matthew, how you doing, man?
I'm a little stressed out this morning.
Why?
Uh-oh.
Because, as previously noted, I went with Scott Martin over Seth Feider at the last tournament. Therefore, in my underground high-stakes fantasy fishing leagues, I gave up my 200-point lead, and it is now neck and neck for all the marbles on the last derby of the year.
Where's it at, the last one?
They're on Thousand Islands this week.
Oh, right now this is it?
Yeah, this is it. This is for all the marbles.
Uh-oh.
So I either get my money back or I have gas money for Oneida in 2 weeks.
What?
I'm either going to finish first or second in the group, right? Well, it pays like $300-400 to win it.
What's second?
$20, your money back. It's kind of, and I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, it's kind of like a Bassmaster Open payout.
Oh, yes. Kind of is, isn't it? It kind of is.
But anyway, no, I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting. Like I said, Uncle Frank, you're catching A-rig fish yesterday. We had a legitimate rumble on BTL yesterday. We're going to settle that feud today.
C-rig fish.
And we're going to take some calls, right, Mark? Is that still the game plan?
Yeah, that's still the game plan.
Now,
We're going to open up
into it, though.
What's that?
We are down to less than 72 hours to get your day 4 with Frank Scalish t-shirts on BassZone.com on the merchandise store.
Okay.
Like, there's not going to be another design until next year. So if you want your day 4 shirt, well, Uncle Frank, or my favorite
7
color is 7 shirt, that store closes on Sunday. You got to make some I'm not sure if it's Sunday at midnight or Saturday at midnight, and then 12:01 is Sunday. It closes on the 18th. So you have 2 days to get your merchandise, your BTL merch. You need to make some banners that say that, Mark, because based on my research, people like to procrastinate. Not me. I do everything right off the hopper, but everyone else procrastinates.
Hey, let's just assume it's Saturday and just get your orders in.
Yeah. So that's where you can get Uncle Frank's shirt.
I spent a lot of money on that. I got thank you by the people that do the shirts. Sent me
What?
Yeah, they said thank you for your order. Your order is.
Why are you buying stuff on there, Uncle Frank? I get that for you at cost. You've got a shirt on the site.
I'm aware, but you know what happens? Sometimes it's give and take, man. You got to put back, so I'm putting back. I'm feeding the hopper. Hell, I buy stuff on LureNet all the time. I'm probably their best customer.
Hey, Frank, that's so he doesn't have to rely on fantasy fishing to put gas in his truck. Okay?
That's right. It's the GoFundMe, Matt.
You would be shocked. I've been, when we covered the Elite Series all the time, you'd be with a guy who's sponsored by a store that they walk in and they just have a basket full, and you're like, oh, he's about to big league everybody. And they go up and they're like, that's a $480 total, sir. They whip out their credit card and pay for it. And I'm like, wait a second, your boat is wrapped by them. And he's like, yeah, man, it's 10% off.
Yeah. That's actually very factual.
Yes, it is. All right, so what we're going to do today, we're going to open up the phone lines. I know a lot of people out there probably watching some of the action that's taking place on the SLR with the Elite Series event, but we are going to open up the phone lines. You're going to be able to ask Frank or Matt a question. You can ask me a question, but I don't know anything, so we will continue down that path.
You are so bitter.
All right, because I'm an idiot, and we'll get into that. We'll get that. We'll get into that here in a minute.
I see another shirt coming down the pipe.
What? I'm an idiot.
Bitter.
Anyway, we will jump on the Sunline Hotline, and remember, with the setup that we have today, and really the setup that we're going to continue to have, you can call in, you can ask your question to Frank or Matt, and then you got to hang up to listen. All right?
Because you won't hear the response.
Correct, because the systems don't communicate to each other, and I have busted my tail to try and get the systems to communicate, but it is a challenge that I have not overcome yet. Notice I say yet because I'm still working on it. All right, we will take phone calls here in a few minutes. I really was bothered by the show yesterday, Frank.
I understand that.
And the reason that I was bothered, well, there were multiple reasons, but I felt that I was an absolute idiot at the way that I was trying to describe my opinion on the subject matter that Matt brought up about whether or not blue dots on big water are more valuable than big dots or blue dots on any other body of water in this great nation. And my premise was that no, they're not. And the argument and basically the platform that I stood upon was wrong. I did it the wrong way. And I didn't think of how to position my premise until last night, and it hit me while I was on the lawnmower of all places.
That's
you
usually
were mowing your own yard?
Dude, I just bought a brand new lawnmower. What are you talking about? Yes.
I'm just saying, you got 3 yard guys. I figured one of them got on the lawnmower and did it for you.
I've got a weed and feed guy, and I had a landscaper redo our flower beds. That's all I got.
Two. You're the third.
I got me, and I love mowing the yard. Man, that is like my time to just get away from everything and think about things. And I came to the conclusion that I was an absolute idiot the way that I tried to proceed in the premise that you set forth about the blue dots. So here, I'm just going to say this, and then finally, folks, I know people were calling us little girls and all kinds of other names.
You, not me.
All right. No, they said us. They referred to as us, as
Don't
little
drag
girls.
me into this.
Hey, it's the collective we.
All right. So I am going to set forth with Frank being on the show. We're not going to take time away from Frank. We will go extra if we need to. But I think it's very important that I explain what I was trying to get across yesterday, today. And if you guys don't understand it, maybe I truly am an idiot. All right.
Folks, just for those listening on iTunes, Mark has just picked up a legal pad with notes on it.
Yes, I have. And it's not a legal pad. It's a memo pad. Legal pads are a lot bigger. All right. Anyway, they're 8x14 there, Matthew. Anyway, I referred back to my roots. And I referred back to what I am good at, which is very few things. All right. But I referred back to what I was good at. And I am making this comparison by comparing the subject of blue dots to investing, all right, to investing your money, the business model. Now, from a blue dot perspective, you basically get blue dots one of two ways. Either you bust your tail and go out and find those areas and lock the blue dots in, or you get blue dots from your buddy who's put in a lot of time and effort and just passes them along to you. You guys agree with that?
Yes, the McDonald's mentality.
That's right. Basically, both ways. Now, when it comes to investing, you could do one of two things. You can try and do it yourself and rely on what your speculation is, or you can have a professional invest your hard-earned money for you. You guys agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I have $10,000 and I'm going to invest that money either with a professional or do it on my own, the true value, all right, from a value standpoint, when you take away the initial $10,000 that I'm putting in there, is either a loss or a gain, depending upon what those investments do. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, you're either going to lose money or you're going to make money. One of the two. If you stay dead even at 10 grand, good for you. You made absolutely nothing. But it is the goal and objective to everybody that invests money to do what? Make money with your money. Right?
Okay, so far I'm with you.
All right? Now, there are a couple of ways that you can invest your money. Actually, there's a zillion ways, but basically 2 ways.
Yard.
Okay? You can... I do have a big yard, Matthew. You know that. All right. You can get that guaranteed money. But that guaranteed money doesn't pay you squat right now. CD rates or some CD rates are even below 1%. It's stupid how low your guaranteed rates on investments are today. And I know there's some other crap out there that you can do, municipal bonds and all this other stuff and everything. But that's guaranteed money. You have zero risk. You're going to get 0.5%, 1%, whatever that number is. Or you can go the speculative route and go out there and listen to what your professional is telling you to hopefully make you a lot of money, because that's what everybody wants to do, is make a lot of money on their money, unless you just want to spend it and be broke. All right? You guys agree with that entire analysis? Yes or no?
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Okay, now let's go over to the blue dot. The blue dot investment. Now, it doesn't matter what body of water that you are on. You're going to get blue dots either one of two ways. Either you're going to go out and spend a lot of time on the water, bust your tail, and get those blue dots on that one single boulder that might be on Lake Erie somewhere. All right, ooh, I found it. Boom, blue dot. Now, you're going to do the same thing on a Lake Gunnersville, on a Kentucky lake, on a Barkley, on a Grand Lake. May not be the same structure, but you are very, very speculative on that spot, because you are getting those blue dots, not for right then, but for the future. Because you are investing your time and effort in hoping that the value of those blue dots are going to produce what? Fish when you have a tournament. And if they do produce fish during a tournament that you've went out there and worked hard or got the blue dots from somebody, now the value of those blue dots is exceptional. All right? But if you go out and you have 5,000 blue dots no matter what lake you're on and never catch a freaking fish on it, what's the value of that blue dot, Frank?
Zero.
That's right. Nothing. Zero. That is the point that I was trying to make yesterday, Matt, that whether you have blue dots on the big water or any other body of water in the nation, it does not matter unless you profit from those blue dots. That's why for you to say that the value is more important for those blue dots that are on the big water compared to every other body of water in the nation is not true, because the only value is showcased and comes forth based upon the amount of revenue that is generated from those blue dots.
Okay. Can I interrupt you? Or
I'm done.
Okay. So
I've heard that before.
I'm
done. I'm done. We're done. You're done. I'm done. Everyone's done.
No, I'm done with my rebuttal.
Okay, so you talk about loss and gain. Okay, so let's talk about loss and gain. When you go out and you find said structure by idling around and doing your homework, and then you find fish on those places, most of the time you're on a lake looking at that stuff when it's pertinent, because you're not going to be looking at rock piles in 30 feet of water during the spawn. Okay, so when the time is right and you're looking for the stuff, you might find 20 good rock piles and 3 of them have fish currently. That means up to the minute, this is what's happening right now. That waypoint is the most valuable waypoint you have at that moment, because it's happening right now. It's current. Now, the other ones that you find will have fish on them sometime eventually, okay? And then those will become relevant. But right now, those ones are not relevant. The only relevant waypoints are the ones with the fish on them. Now, here's the gain, okay? When you go out and you find fish, or you find the structure and the fish are on the structure at the current time, okay? Your gain that nobody's talking about is the ability that you have just figured out something about those fish's movements. Maybe it's after the spawn and you're starting on near shore structure and you're finding those fish. Now your knowledge that you just gained is paramount, because now you're understanding how these fish are moving from their spawning grounds to their summer locations. This gives you the ability to look at a map on any given body of water and at that time of year and go, here's my process. This, and this should be okay. This is where these fish should be moving. That's the most valuable thing you can have, is an understanding. The problem is if somebody gives you a waypoint, unless that waypoint is currently producing fish at the moment, okay, you might pull up to that waypoint and there might be fish on it. What if 3 days from now, when the tournament starts, you pull up on that waypoint and there is no fish on it? Because you didn't do all the work surrounding getting that waypoint, you may not know where those fish are moving to once they leave that waypoint. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, if somebody gives you a waypoint, as buddy to buddy or what have you, if you pull up on there and there's fish on it, you need to scour the area all around that particular waypoint to find other nooks and crannies and other things that those fish may slide to if they get off of that waypoint. Otherwise, you're going to be left holding the bag with a big zero if those fish relocate. And they may only relocate 20 yards, 50 yards. So you have to do your homework. Even if somebody hands you a waypoint, you still have to do your homework.
All right, Frank, let me ask you this. Now, value is different. And what I am basing value on this entire premise of my argument is whether or not you made any money.
Right, performance.
Yeah, it's like with your portfolio. Yeah, you want to be well diversified in your portfolio from an investment standpoint, but at the same time, that's kind of how it goes with blue dots too. So the actual return that you gain from that blue dot, which would be the value of that blue dot, is totally measured based upon the amount of money that is generated from that blue dot.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, ultimately, look. Ultimately, when you lay a waypoint down, you're believing it's going to pay off, either currently or somewhere down the line, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. Waypoints are only valuable, according to your production theory, okay?
Yeah.
If it's a current happening place at the moment you're there. I can give you a waypoint. I could give you waypoints that I found 10 years ago. If the fish aren't on them, they're worthless.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me?
Yeah.
And so the only value you can put on a waypoint, now structure's not leaving. A river ledge isn't going anywhere. Rock piles aren't going anywhere. It's all good knowledge base, and somewhere down the road, that waypoint could be valuable. You follow me?
Yes.
But it's only valuable now if there's fish on it now. And more often than the case is, if they're older waypoints from patterns from a year ago, 2 years ago, those waypoints don't always produce fish. So they will produce fish at a certain time, but they don't always produce fish.
You're right. And when you're investing your money, a lot of things take place in the market that, based upon what the expected return might be, doesn't happen because of things that occur in the economy or whatever the case might be. All right? Which will have an effect on your return on your investment. The blue dots are the same thing. You could do all the research, do your homework, and do everything, but if you go out there and that particular blue dot, or 100 of them, do not produce any fish, you're not getting any return from the investment that you put in, no matter how you got those blue dots. The comparison that I was trying to make is the actual return value of blue dots is no different from what is on the big water blue dots compared to all the lakes across the remainder of the U.S. That is the point that I was trying to make.
Right. I understand that finally.
Yes.
But you're talking about at the moment. Let me see if I get this. Okay. So I'm and what Frank is saying, yeah, you can run 50 of his best waypoints, regardless of how you got, whether you spent 20 years amassing them, whether someone gave it to you, whether you understand it or not. You can run blue dots. And he's saying 95% of them, according to your theory, are going to have no value. because there's not going to be fish on them. Now, I'm not talking about expanding it and understanding it. That's a whole different conversation as to why are they not on this blue dot. And there's some you can learn they're not on this blue dot. And you start expanding and figuring out what blue dot they're on. And if you actually did your homework, then you know the other blue dots and things that are similar, and you can put it together and up your odds. But what I'm hearing you say, Mark, is you're trying to compare penny stocks and day trading to like a Roth IRA.
No,
and
not
that's
even
where
close.
I have an issue to where
Not
you're
even
saying
close.
This is valuable today. This is what I'm doing, but then you're selling it and it's short term, only going to benefit you because it's a waypoint that is going to move over time, that is going to shift, that isn't going to be there next year, and you're not looking at the long term investment that the Great Lakes waypoints will give you. Where it might not pay off today, it might not pay off tomorrow, but sometime that waypoint that I have maintained and kept for 10 years is going to pay off. And all of a sudden I'm going to roll up there and be like, I remember in 2011 when I caught him on this thing. So I think you're devaluing the extra importance of those waypoints, because I assure you, because I just tried to do it, blue dots that I worked my butt off to get on Grand in 2014 when I went out and did the big bass bash fishing offshore, which you told me I never do yesterday, but I fished the big bass bash there. That stuff was deteriorated. It was gone. It was no longer any good for me.
Right, and then you got to get rid of them.
Right. I mean, so that's all I was saying. But I understand what you're saying. It's just how you are valuing the waypoint at the time is where our difference arises.
All right. Still say I'm wrong, and I can accept that. But bottom line is
this.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. You're just looking at it from a different perspective.
That's right. I don't care where the blue dots are. It doesn't matter, in my opinion. If those blue dots do not produce fish to where you make money
at the time,
they're not valuable.
Fair enough. Let's take some calls for Uncle Frank.
Let's move on. Sorry. I'm sorry you even had to be exposed to that, Frank. But it bothered me. It bothered me.
It's better than the malfunction I'm having on my coffee cup.
What's going on with that?
It will not give me any coffee. I had to
be careful. You're about to douse yourself.
Yeah, I know. I'm nervous about doing this.
You should have your assistant fix that for you.
No. Hey, real quick. I do want to say this real quick, and then we'll jump in. Listen, folks, thank you for the feedback. Thank you for telling me that I was either right or wrong. That is what makes this show great, is most of the time I'm wrong and most of the time Matt is right. And we continue to base our premise on what we believe. And that's kind of the beauty of this show. And yeah, people are wrong. I'm wrong a lot. All right. But I am right a few times too. But I just want to say thanks to all the people that did send me emails and went after me on the comments. Hey, that's what this show is about, and I like it. That's why, man, if I didn't care, I wouldn't have sat there on my lawnmower and had it bother me for 2 hours while I was mowing.
Okay, speaking about lawnmower,
yeah.
Here's the thing. When I did marketing and advertising, and I had to do a lot of copywriting, commercials and stuff, sometimes you get writer's block where you can't get out of your own way and you can't put a coherent thought together. So they did a study about writer's block, all right? Doing mundane tasks like weeding a garden, cutting the lawn, washing your car clears your head so you could put all your thoughts back together. That's an actual psychological fact.
Okay, so is that why Tommy Biffle went out and mowed his yard when he was fishing on Fort Gibson rather than practicing?
No, because his wife probably yelled at him.
No, he knew he was going to win it. He's like, the mow yard. But that would explain why I like to cook every night during the opens.
100%.
Why I like to completely clear it, and I'm focused on searing that steak or that, because it clears my mind and then allows me to refocus the next day. That makes a lot of sense.
It's true.
All right, Frank, thank you for letting me have a few minutes of your show to try and explain my premise, be it right or wrong, and everybody else's opinion, but thank you.
It's your guys' show. I'm just occupying a little box in the corner.
No,
No,
Thursday
you have
is.
your own show. You know why? Because you have your own T-shirt for your show called Day 4 with Frank Scalish, now available for the next 72 hours.
Get them
That's
while
right.
they're hot.
Passo.com.
Get them while they're hot. Saturday.
right.
Buy them before Saturday. Don't miss
All right,
out.
we're gonna give something away. I know I had away last week. We're gonna give. I found another hat, Matt, that I
Was it
didn't
from the
realize
junior
that I
high you
had.
coached in 2007 that got
Do what
ran
now?
over by the bus. Is it a used hat or a new hat?
No, it's brand new.
Oh,
okay.
I want the one with the sweat marks on it. Come on.
So from one of the phone calls that we get today, and I will keep a list, Matt. I don't know if you've got a legal pad
I do not.
by you. All right, I'll keep a list for the phone calls today. We'll randomly pick one of the numbers from the calls that we get today on the Sunline Hotline, and I will send a brand new BTL hat your way, and maybe a used hoodie and a pair of
Carolina
socks
rig weights.
and some Carolina rig weights. There we go.
There
Good
you
job,
go.
Matt. All right, so the number is up on the board, 405-253-5543. Give us a call. Ask Matt or Uncle Frank anything you want to about bass fishing or anything else, and we will look forward. I will keep an eye on here. Hopefully I've got everything turned on correctly. I'm looking. Yeah, I think it's good to go. So give us a call, 405-253-5543. Matt, when is the next time? I'm kind of curious. I know, and I think a lot of people out there obviously know you have the Opens coming up, but when's the next time you're going to be on the water? Are you going to try and get some practice in over the weekend? What are your plans?
I believe that, so I will, I'll get on the water this weekend, just fun fish, but then I think I'm going to go back and fish the Lake Decatur jackpot next Wednesday in Illinois.
Nice.
Yeah. That's
All
that's a really hard to get bit tournament. Has been for the last 3 decades.
Very cool.
Did you get your jack plate fixed?
Yeah. It was the fuse had wiggled loose.
Ah.
So I was looking at all of the
Yeah.
I thought it was seized, and it was not. Like Tyler Dennis from S&D Boats just went, and then we lubricated it. And there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than taking your boat to the service yard or having your buddy look at it, and it's just an easy fix, and you just feel like an idiot.
Well, no, that's actually the best case scenario, because there's nothing worse than taking your boat to the service yard and them going, you can't use this anymore.
No, I agree.
You know
but
what I
I'm
mean?
just saying, that feeling where you think you've exhausted everything and you kind of know what you're looking like, and then your buddy just comes and he just kind of kicks or bumps something, and he's like, "There, I fixed it," and you're just like, oh my god, how did I wake up and brush my teeth this morning?
Well,
Nice.
You know what? You know how you break a lake down with a purpose? We were talking about it before we went on the air, how you have this, you got to start somewhere and you have to have a certain process so you don't miss anything. And then once you start to narrow it down, I do the same thing with all the electronics on my boat. When something stops working, the first thing I do is I check the fuse, then the connections, and then I work backwards to the unit, whatever it is. If it's a locator, a hydraulic jack plate, a trim switch, whatever. I start with the easiest first and work my way down.
All right.
Very nice.
We had a call, but
I heard part of it.
yeah, they went away. I guess they got frustrated. All right, let's go back to the phones now. Hey, you're on BTL Day 4 with Frank. Who is this?
Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Kevin.
Kevin, what's on your mind today,
What's
man?
happening? Hey, wanted to call in, talk to Frank real quick. I'm from his neck of the woods, just over in Paynesville, Ohio. Fish Lake Erie all the time, and been out there for several years. Been able to find some really nice areas, but I'm looking to expand. And I kind of wanted to pick his brain a little bit about how I should go about expanding in such vast water where everything looks the same. I'm kind of stuck in the 18 to 24 foot depth range, and been able to help a lot of people catch some fish, but I want to see what else is out there. And
All right.
I wanted to see what he had for the next step.
All right, sounds good. Hang up and listen to Frank's answer.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care. Frank?
All right, Kevin, I wrote down as fast as I could write down what you were saying. Generally speaking, the 18 to 24 foot range, especially out there, is fairly productive most of the year, even in the springtime as the fish start to move in, because they stop on those areas before they go in, and they stop on those areas before they get way out. When you start poking around in the deeper water, it gets a little more tricky because you're looking for more isolated stuff that's not related to any of the mainland structure. Okay. So you're looking for more isolated stuff. And part of the issue in that area, especially, you can go to where the clay meets the mud or the sand meets the clay, and then the mud, because they'll use those bottom transitions as holding areas, but they're not there for very long. The other thing that happens is you start to get into central Lake Erie, and let's call it from Paynesville east. A lot of those smallmouths start roaming on the pelagic bait fish like the walleye do. And so they're very hard to find and very hard to stay on once you find them. So just basically concentrate on elements that never change, like rock piles and bottom composition, and expand your search that way. But be very cognizant of this. The deeper you catch the smallmouths, the more likelihood of their surviving becomes less. So I don't really even target smallmouths when they get super deep in the summer, unless I'm fishing like a Bassmaster event or something, because I don't really want to fun fish and take pictures of fish that I know probably won't survive. But they're out there, and they're out there in numbers. But when you find them that deep, you're not going to catch 20 or 30 of them. You're going to catch 4 or 5 maybe. And then but they'll all be big. They'll be giants.
All right, cool stuff. Let's see here. There were several people. If you call in and I can't answer, just call back and we'll go from there. All right, let's see here. Hey, you're on BTL. Who is this?
That's Tommy Wall from Linton, Indiana. How you doing?
Good, Tommy. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I got a question for Frank. My son and I fished some local USA bassin tournaments, and the strip pits is trolling motor only, and they usually get pretty pressured. And we're hearing, mid-July, water temps mid-80s. Would he recommend downsizing in the grass with your bait presentation?
All right, hang up and listen.
Right. Tommy,
Thanks, man.
That's a good question. When it comes to strip pits, knowing how they mine the pit is important too, because a lot of times what they do is if it's a deep pit, they put these logging roads, kind of like a spiral going down the pit, and every logging road's going to have a stair step ledge to it, and where the grass grows, obviously it's not going to be super deep unless the pit's very clear. The clearer the pit, the deeper the grass. I don't generally downsize. But what I'll do is little tricks like go to a flick shake rig, feather it down the brake line, something real subtle. And just same thing with the Ned Rig, but Ned Rig like a 5-inch or a 6-inch dinger on it. Stay with the size you want, because you're still going to catch a bigger class of bass like that. And it's something that they're not going to see a lot of. Strip pits generally by nature are super small. So the more pressure they get, the more bass are familiar with certain types of presentations, or baits, I should say, not really presentations, but baits. So go against the norm. If guys are Ned rigging, 2.5-inch TRDs, go to a 5-inch dinger. If they're flick shaking little tiny finesse worms, go to a 6.5-inch finesse worm or a 5-inch dinger. Do the same techniques that are catching the fish, but change it up. And it's a good way to catch bigger bass, especially on those high pressure systems.
Matt, have you ever fished the strip pits in Tulsa?
No, where?
Right off the interstate there. You can see them sometimes. There's that, and then there's some more. I've never seen them up by
that super deep one that's right there.
Yeah,
no, it's I know how to get into that one because it's only like 5 minutes from where I live right now.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of a pansy and I'm not good at trespassing. Like, I do not enjoy that stuff. Like, it just gives me anxiety, and I feel like I'm going to go to jail and stuff. So, like, I've not ever really been one to sneak in and fish places because it's just not enjoyable. The level of anxiety it gives me that I'm doing something wrong.
All right. Let's go back to the phones. Hey, you're on BTL with Frank. Who is this?
Is this Mark?
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Bluetooth's acting funny. This is Zach on Lake Norman in North Carolina, right above Charlotte.
Okay.
Quick little scenario. I'm trying not to take too much of everybody's time, more than the 20-minute stock scenario we listened to already this morning. Summertime, it's July. The surface temps 78 to 82 all across the lake. Predominant species around here now is spotted bass. First thing in the morning, if topwater's the deal, we're going to points. How long messing with a school? Say you get 15, 20 bites on topwater, maybe 30 minutes spread out. They're all tiny. Run baits, Cincos, and worms underneath it, trying to pick off big ones. No big ones in the school. How long will Frank mess with that school before he goes to look for bigger fish and accept that, hey, there's not bigger fish around here? And if I can add a second question into that, if he's not looking for these schools over points, what would be, if you're not targeting brim beds, what would be what he would start out with in this type of heat first thing in the morning before searching for offshore as the sun gets higher in the day?
All right. Great question, man. Hang up and listen. We appreciate the call.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, man. Take care. Good stuff, Frank.
Zach, that's a great question, and I have very intimate knowledge of Lake Norman to boot. When I get on, I'll answer your first question first. When I get on the schools of spots and they're running small, I don't even bother with them. I just leave them because they generally run in same size, especially if they're schooling up. Now, that being said, if there is a predominant topwater bite going on that lake, it might just be that you're not finding the schools of the 3-pounders. So you may have to run a lot of that stuff to find certain points or flats that have those fish on them. Wake baits are pretty good when they're schooling because it generally appeals to a better size class fish. But really, if I start catching small fish on Norman, I'm moving because you know how Lake Norman fishes. You're going to need 17 to 19 pounds to win. Normally, in the spring, you're going to need more because largemouth play a bigger factor. So early spring, late fall, the largemouth play more of a role. As far as what I would look for, I like offshore fishing a ton. Norman's a fantastic offshore lake. So what I'll do is I'll scour the place and look for brush piles, deep brush piles, or I'll look for ledges or high spots with drops on them, and I always look for the steepest side of the break.
Good stuff there. Hey, let me ask you this, Frank. For some of the lakes across the nation that have stripers in it, I want to know your thoughts on this because depending on the lake, I've had people tell me, hey, when the stripers are schooling this time of the year, a lot of times the largemouth will hang out with those stripers. Can you recall any situation or a body of water where that occurs?
Yeah, when I was on Murray, that happened a lot. The biggest problem that I had is getting through the stripers.
Yeah.
The bass will be underneath the stripers picking off the floaters that they wound and start falling down. The bass will get underneath them and pick off the easy ones, because they're opportunistic predators. Let the stripers do the work and we'll take the spoils. But it's hard to get through the stripers, especially when they're aggressively feeding on top. But, what I'll wind up doing then is I'll throw a deeper diving crankbait to get below the stripers. And if I can get the crankbait below them before one of them eats it, I can generally catch a bass. You're fishing for suspending fish in that instance. So if the stripers are coming up on top, I try to get a bait that runs 7-8 feet so I can get below the stripers. A lot of times you're not going to get through the stripers, especially if they're especially the bigger ones.
Yeah, Matt and I know what that's like. Still, referring back to the greatest 45 minutes in the history of my topwater fishing, couple weeks ago. All right, this one is coming from the comments on YouTube. Do you think that striper and hybrids on a hump push the bass off the places?
Okay, that I have experienced both situations where such a number of these fish moved in that the bass vacated. I don't know if the bass really left the place or if they just didn't feel like competing for the food source. I have seen it where it hurts it, and I have seen it where it doesn't matter. So I can't really give you a definitive answer on that. But if I find a place that has bass on it, and I go back a day later and the hybrids and stripers moved in on it, I'm still going to fish it. If I don't catch bass, I'll leave and go somewhere else to a different, structural element. But I have seen instances where they move in and I can't catch a bass, and I've had instances where they move in and it didn't matter.
All right. Next question from the comments. Question for Frank: are the new Pop R P71s equal to the originals, and what line and rod would you recommend for them? Thanks.
Yeah, that P71's a bad hombre. It walks the dog fantastic. It's super easy bait. A lot of the key techniques with that particular bait. What made that bait famous in the first place is guys were pitching it underneath overhanging limbs and in open pockets in the blowdowns, and then they walk it in the same place for a few times until the fish comes up and gets it. That's what made that bait famous. It is equally as good as the original one because it is the P71 basically. Line size, I adjust the line size to the type of cover that I'm fishing it in. If I'm fishing it over open water, I can go with 15-pound or 17-pound monofilament. You could throw it on braid too. It'll walk on braid too, but you got to kind of tie a loop knot to that. I don't use a Norman speed clip on that because the line tie is thin, and I don't want it to get in between the opening on the speed clip because it can do that. And the bait's very balanced, so I try not to alter that bait too much because it is very balanced and it works fantastic right out of the box. So yeah, I mean, you could go just use your line size according to the type of cover you're fishing. It will still walk. Use a loop connector to it. It'll walk even better. And in heavy cover, use heavy line, but use monofilament. You need line that floats. Fluorocarbon will sink the nose and it won't walk as good on you. And braided line floats, so you won't have that issue with the braid either.
All right, next one from the comments on YouTube. JD wants to know, when fishing out or offshore, how many baits will you run through before moving on to another spot? And also, how long will you wait to roll back through those spots you just fished earlier?
Jay, that's a good question. What I usually do is I have colors that in soft plastics, I have my colors or even football jigs that I know will work on that particular body of water. Basically, I pick my colors out based on the water color itself. So when I grab a color, I know the color is going to at least get me a bite. Usually with offshore fishing, what I have found, once you find the sweet spot, you're not begging nothing to eat. They're eating it. It's just finding that sweet spot. Here, I was out yesterday Carolina rigging, and I was fishing this channel ledge, and I caught one. I spot locked the boat. I made a mental note of my cast based on some land references I took in the distance. I landed that fish. I cast out again to the same spot. I caught another one. My buddy was fan casting all around, and he wasn't catching any. I made another cast to the exact same spot. I caught another one. So what happens is a lot of times with structure fishing, it is your angle. The bass will have a preference for the angle. So here's my rule of thumb. When I look at a piece of structure for the first time, I fish through it. If I catch one, I make a note where I caught it. If the fish are on that structure, let's say I get one and he doesn't really take it good, then I start monkeying with color. Or if I'm in a tournament situation, after I rail that piece of cover and catch everything I can catch on color A, then I'll go through with a different color and then I'll go through with the crankbait. Or completely the opposite. If they're on the crankbait, I'll catch them all on the crankbait, change color, catch what else I can, then go to the Carolina rig and catch the rest. So that's kind of how I work it. As far as giving spots a rest, if I practiced on a spot and it had fish on it 2 days ago and I go back there and I don't catch one, I'll run back to it periodically throughout the day, because sometimes I might have missed their main feeding cycle. So I'll run back several times throughout the day. Generally give a spot a break. I like to give them a pretty good break, an hour or more.
All right. Matt, I want to ask you this, because I have witnessed you in action now with the finesse tactic that you're really, really becoming really good at. When you're fishing boat docks or some of the structure that you've fished so far in the opens, the same question. How long do you give those spots if they don't produce? And do you repeat the same rotation that you previously did, even though you didn't get bit? What have you done in that from a finesse standpoint?
I mean, it depends if I still see the fish there, to be honest with you. Like, typically, if I'm going through docks, I'm looking at a fish that is a suspended fish that is going to hit the bait as it goes past it. So it's very target oriented, and I know I'm within that strike window of that fish, so I give it 1 or 2 casts. And if I'm not getting bit on that, I mean, that's where 95% of my bites are. So, I mean, with forward-facing sonar, you can see they're there too. But, I mean, like at Douglas, I knew those fish were there, but I couldn't see them, like on the bottom, because they were in these like rock cracks, and the rocks came up like kind of like little spire deals to where you couldn't see them.
Yeah.
And I just was confident that there were fish there, and I stayed there all day and went through the lulls.
Yeah, you waited them out until they started.
Yeah, it just is it's kind of a gut feeling for me, but like but that was like an area, right? So like I could be making fresh casts every time I went through that area or a different angle. If it's like a brush pile and stuff, like once they stop biting, just move on and then come back to it. Like at 10 Killer, when I fished against you, I had 3 deals. And I spent 20 minutes on one deal, 20 minutes on the next, 20 minutes on the next. And by the time I came back to the other one, it had been 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Hey, you're on BTL with Frank. Who is this?
This is Keith from Western Kentucky.
Keith, what's on your mind today?
Well, I don't really have a question for Frank, but I have a gigantic thank you for Frank. I just wanted to thank him for the great advice to always look for active feeding smallmouth up in the current. Earlier in the year, in the first week of April, we fished a local open tournament by a ranger dealer, and I didn't even get to pre-fish. My son, the night before, tells me, go to this spot. I caught a few there. Give it a try. So my brother and I go there, and we're throwing in the back of the current, and we're really not catching anything, just small fish. And I remembered what Frank said, and I said, scoot up into the current, and let's see if we can do any good. Oh, my gosh. I mean, we started smashing fish. And we ended up with like just under 19 pounds, and 3 of the 5 that we weighed in were largemouth. We're smallmouth. So, Frank, thank you very much. Not only am I glad, and we ended up coming in 5th in the tournament. So later that night, now get this part, later that night, I'm sitting in my house, and my brother gives me a call, and he said, you aren't going to believe this. And I said, what? He said, well, we finished 5th, but the owner of the Ranger dealership just called me and told me that we were the highest finishing qualifiers for the U.S. Open on Table Rock in November. So thanks for the tip, Frank. Because of that, my son gave me the spot. You gave us the advice, and it looks like in November we're going to be fishing the U.S. Open on Table Rock. Awesome. And I'm telling you, it was by the grace of God that we got to catch any fish at all. So I just wanted to call and say thank you. And yes, I did order my Day 4 Frank Scalish shirt, and my favorite color is 7. So
nice.
I'm doing the best I can for you, Matt. So I appreciate it. Thank you again.
All right, man. Take care. Great phone call. How good does that make you feel, Frank?
That's what it's all about to me. I mean, those are the phone calls I love to hear, because it lets me know that it's working, that the guys are actually listening to the advice, and it also gives credence to the fact that I'm not BSing anybody. I mean, I'm talking about real fishing situations. Keith, I'm really happy for you guys that you made the U.S. Open and that you did well in the tournament, and I'm really grateful that some of the stuff that you heard on BTL helped you. I love it.
That's awesome, man. That is such a good phone call, and it's really cool to hear. And you see the emails, I see the emails, you get the DMs, Frank, about the success that people have had as a result of listening to this show and taking your advice. And you're right, man. That's what it's all about. That is cool stuff. All right. From the comments on YouTube, somebody wants to know, how do they improve and become a better jig fisherman? What advice would you give on that?
Okay, so here's the thing about this. I have a really good buddy of mine who struggled with the jig. Put a shaky head in his hand, put a Texas rig in his hand, and he's money all day long, nonstop. But the jig thing was troublesome for him. So what we did was, when I got on a good jig bite, I took him, and he was only allowed to throw a jig, period, until he figured out all the nuances of it. Now, jig fishing, you have to understand there's a ton of different ways to fish a jig, and there's a ton of different situations which to apply this. So here's what I did. In the beginning stages of my jig fishing lifetime, I was terrible at fishing a jig in grass. Terrible. So I picked out a lake that I knew had a lot of fish in it and a lot of grass in it. And I went and I spent as much free time as I could on that lake doing nothing but fishing that jig until I understood how to get it through the grass, what grass is better or not, what depth range, et cetera, et cetera. That's how I learned how to fish a jig in the grass, okay? Same thing with flipping. Flipping a jig is very different than fishing a jig in the grass. So if you're having an issue, you have to go somewhere where the bite's relevant, and you have to not put it down until you figure this out. And that's the only thing I can tell you is practice, practice, and practice.
All right. Let's see here. There was a finesse question for both of you guys. Here, let me throw it up here. Frank or Matt, is there a way to rig a weightless fluke on a spinning setup that won't twist your line all to hell? I run 10-pound braid to 6-pound fluoro with a 4/0 worm hook with a super fluke. Frank?
Okay, yes, there is. About 18, 19 inches in front of your super fluke, put a micro swivel, and that'll help with the line twist. And the reason I say in front of the fluke is if you tie your little micro swivel to your braided line, and then you have a 4 or 5 foot leader in front of the fluke, it's too hard to skip it and cast it by getting this micro swivel closer to the fluke. So you got your braid, your fluorocarbon, your micro swivel, and then your super fluke. Okay. That's how I do that with a spinning rod setup. The other thing is the 4/0 hook is awful large for the super fluke. So you may want to take it down to a 3/0. It'll work better for you. I know you're going to lose a little bit of weight by getting rid of that, but you can put a tiny piece of a nail weight in there to make up for the hook size difference. But the hook size is important. Your hook percentage should increase also with that.
Matt, do you ever use a fluke on a spinning rod?
Very rarely. But if you want to get twist out of your spinning rod, if you do get line twist on it, just when you're going to your next spot, cut your lure off, open your bail, put your line over the side of the boat, and troll out. And it will get all of the line twist out of your spinning rod. Now, typically you don't have to do it a lot with braid, but if you are throwing does something that gets line twist, or if you're getting wind knots, or if when you're casting your line is going around the top of your guides or getting tangled, just cut everything off. It's just the line. It uses the line weight. That's what allows it to unspin.
Right.
Open your bail, get rid of all the line. I mean, it'll be 150 yards behind you, depending on the size of it. Troll, your rod will be bent because of all the resistance of it, and all it'll do is it'll take every single twist out of it. use a little tension, reel it back in. You're good to go for the next 3 or 4 hours if you're doing something that has a lot of line twist in it.
Right, and that's true too.
All right, cool stuff. Once again, the phone line is open, 405-253-5543. There was a question on the YouTube comments, Frank. Is there a body of water besides the New York lakes that if somebody was located in the Midwest would be a great place to go to catch smallmouth besides the New York lakes? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, St. Clair's great. There's tons of lakes in Michigan that are psychotic for smallmouth fishing. You can even go to like Minnesota, Wisconsin, in those areas. Most of the people there don't even fish for them. I mean, most of the fishing there is for walleye and perch. So there's a lot of fantastic smallmouth fisheries that are pretty easy to fish. You just got to figure out your destination where you want to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
New York comes to mind because it's close to home for me.
Yeah.
But there's tons of lakes, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and that region that have gobs of smallmouth. I mean, like gobs of them. So, yeah.
Well, that lake that you went to, Matt, the Nation, what divisional was there? If you guys wouldn't have hit it when the snowstorm, in Kansas, that the snowstorm came through there and just destroyed everything. But typically, that's a pretty decent smallmouth lake, isn't it?
So I've heard.
I didn't mean to bring back bad memories there, dude. I'm just, it's middle of the country. It's in the Midwest. It's a smallmouth place. And then obviously you have some of the smallmouth bodies of water that are down south.
Yeah,
yeah.
You do, but those smallmouth fisheries are a little different than up north.
Yeah.
Up north, the smallmouth, you're concentrating on grass and stuff like that. They're a little more predictable, a little easier to find, and there's just tons of them because there just is tons of them.
All right, let me ask you this, because a lot of discussion about the northern smallmouth fisheries. I have made the comment that it turns into a bucket list thing for a lot of people across the country go to the big water, to go to the SLR, to make their way to Champlain. Would you recommend, if they have not experienced big water like that, even on the SLR, that they go out with a guide the very first day? Not really to find fish. I mean, that's a bonus, and obviously everybody wants to catch fish when they go with a guide, but to learn how to manage those bodies of water. Is that a good recommendation, or should people just go, I'm just going to go out from the harbor and get after it?
Well, I don't know everybody's boat handling abilities, so I'm not going to recommend somebody just go willy-nilly out to, especially any of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
No, I won't recommend that, because you could really get in big trouble out there. Taking a guide is great. The guide's not going to show you too much about rough water handling, because he's generally going to have a boat that is set up for big water, and it might not even be a bass boat. It might be like a Lund 2075 or one of those walleye type boats. So he's going to be more equipped for the big water. Going out with a guide is going to ensure you that you are going to catch fish, at least for the most part. Big water's intimidating. I don't know the level of people's boat handling skills, and I don't mean guys on the Tennessee River put the hammer down and run till you turn the corner and the wind hits you in the face. I'm talking about real water, stuff that you could get in trouble with. So, it's a good idea to get a guide first time out.
Hey, by the way, was it yesterday, Matt, or the day before, I don't remember, where we had the guy call up that made reference to Todd, that Todd helped him out and got his boat massively dialed in, and it is performing at the level.
Yeah, old steer and a 4-blade, and it was big water. He said it was well worth it.
Excellent. Did he go to I wonder if he went to the river and met up with those guys.
It was somewhere where he was somewhere. And
he was on the Tennessee River. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, I told you guys to get down there and go see him, because that's what he's down there for. I think they're coming home on the 17th, so too late. Almost. What's the date today? I don't even know what date it is.
The 15th.
It's the 15th.
Okay, so you got 2 days left. Get down there. Go see them.
That's good stuff. All right, on the instant feedback, somebody wants to know what happened to, is it Ruggles Beach on Lake Erie?
Yeah, what happened to it? For decades, guys were removing thousands of smallmouth off of that flat. And like I said earlier in today's show, smallmouth seldomly roam more than 4 or 5 miles from where they are born. So what happens is all those bass on Ruggles get removed. And then it takes a long time for them to reassociate to that area because you remove them all. And so what happens is now it's going to take years for Ruggles to actually start to come back. If a 5-pound smallmouth in Lake Erie takes 15 years to get 5 pounds. So just think about that.
Wow.
Yeah, just think about that. The more 5-pounders you remove from an area where they live, the less 5-pounders are going to be there, and the longer it takes to grow another one. So that's kind of what happened to Ruggles. Ruggles used to be a famous place to go catch smallmouth. But what this gentleman's probably referring to is back in the heyday when there were so many smallmouth in the lake, all you needed was a depth range. You throw out a drift sock and you drag a tube for 3.5, 4 miles. And when you're done, you got 60 smallmouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those days on this lake are over. It's not like that anymore.
I get it. All right, back to the phones. Hey, you're on BTL. Who is this?
Good morning, guys. This is Rick from Pennsylvania.
Rick, what's on your mind today, man?
I got a question for both Matt. Well, maybe all three of you guys can answer this. How do you approach new bodies of water that you've never been on before?
All right, good question. Hang up and listen, man. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.
Before
Frank?
Frank gets to this, you can go back into the archives, and I believe Frank has done like an entire show on this too, haven't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so go back and just look at the past day 4s, and Frank actually kind of breaks down where he's going to start on a lake based on what kind it is, how he's going to start and methodically go through the lake to try to find fish on it based on where and when it is. But Cliff Notes version now.
Those are good Cliff Notes. So realistically, new lakes are my favorite thing in the world to fish because I have no experience on them and it's a big challenge and I love it. The first thing you do is is it a reservoir? Is it a natural lake? The first thing you have to do is figure out what type of lake it is. And then basically it's really simple. I'll divide the lake into sections. Usually 3 sections on the big body of the lake. And then if they're huge creeks, I divide each creek into 3 sections. Generally speaking, I figure out what time of year is it? Because the seasonal pattern is going to narrow that even farther. Once you get it narrowed down to a seasonal thing. So we'll go with, I don't know. It's summer. I don't want to just go right to summer. So let's say it's, post-spawn, the spawn is over. So you know that the bass are going to go up the creeks to spawn. They're going to spawn in smaller pockets, and they're going to spawn, if it's a reservoir, they could spawn up the river system. So I'll take a section of that lake, and I'll say, okay, this creek will have a lot of spawners in it. So then I take the 3 sections of the creek, and I start in the back and start to fish my way out. And once I start to run into the fish, then I can take and these are Cliff Notes too, guys. Then I can take that area in the creek, like say I caught them in the midsection of that creek. Then I can take that and later on apply that to the main lake. And that's how you take a unmanageable body of water and make it more manageable. And I know this was a quick blow through.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I do it. You have to start somewhere. So you have to start always within the seasonal pattern of that time of year.
Yeah, Matt, are you doing the hub and spoke thing on new bodies of water?
No, that's like a tournament deal. Like typically, if I'm haven't done a ton of research, I passed the lake, I'm going to put in. If it's got a dam on it, I like to go down and start at the mouth, of the biggest major creek closest to the dam. I know it's probably going to have the cleanest water, which is going to be my style. It's going to hold fish year round. It's typically going to have bait fish, and it's typically going to be a bigger creek that's going to have a plethora of options the further you get back in it. But that's like 12 months out of the year. You're going to be around fish there if you start somewhere in there and work your way back. Just if you're, does that sound fair, Frank?
Yeah, it is actually. It's 100% accurate too, because the dam section of every lake is the most stable part of the lake.
Yeah.
So in the early season, when you have a lot of rain in the spring and you get all the muddy water blowing up the river systems, and some of your creeks in the midsection, they muddy up real fast. But the dam section is usually the cleanest and the most stable. So there's a lot of accuracy to that.
All right, here's a question from the YouTube comments. Frank, SLR question. Do lithium batteries change the way guys fish on the SLR? Example, instead of drifting, they now spot lock more or actually troll into the current. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, your lithium batteries, the jury's still out for me on lithium batteries, although I am looking at them hard because of the weight differential. The thing with spot lock, it's not so much the lithium battery, it's the actual advent of spot lock and iPilot and everything else that's changing a lot of things. But you're still going to have to use a drift sock, and you're still going to have to drift, because if you're in 5 and 6 footers, your trolling motor is not going to stay in the water long enough to have the spot lock correct it and or move the boat. Okay, spot lock is brilliant in currents without 5-foot waves, because you can spot lock yourself and it does all the work and you could focus on fishing. So that's where it's fantastic. When you're breezy and you got 2 footers or less, spot lock's fantastic too, because you don't drift 100 yards off of your structural element. So spot lock is a huge help. It's changing a lot of things. The lithium batteries, what that's doing is that's giving guys a little bit longer life, and they're taking weight out of their boat. Okay, and so that's where the lithium comes into play. But the thing that lithium does is when it's done, it's done. It quits. It just stops.
Yeah.
There's no more, like when you're on lead acid, it gradually depletes, so you know you're in deep doo-doo. Lithium just goes. So I am researching lithium, so I will tell you this honestly. If I do lithium, I'm going to have 2 36-volt lithium batteries in the back of my boat and make a quick disconnect, so if I lose one, I can swap over to the other one real quick. That gives me double the life, okay? And it still weighs monumentally less than 331 acid lead core batteries.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of the lithium. And to run all of the electronics of today, to have your one lithium battery running all your electronics also is stellar. Because I'm running a big 31 AGM for my electronics, and that battery weighs a ton. Like, I mean a ton. So,
all right. A little update here. He says the post-game show podcast still has the same message with Matt's whistling that he coined. What'd you say? The Andy Griffith show or whatever. All right, listen, folks. If you're experiencing that, here's what you have to do, and I apologize. Just delete that episode that you downloaded. Delete it and then re-download it, and you should be good to go. All right, most of the updates take place automatically, but if you're still, for some reason, because I just went in and checked the status, and the status is fine. We're still unlimited. So if you are experiencing that, just delete that episode and then download it once again. Let's see here.
Easy enough.
Easy enough. He also wants to know, where does a bladed jig come into Frank's grass lake fishing?
I like it in the cold weather months a lot. I'll slow roll it over the tops of the deeper grass. Like I'm talking almost ice out conditions. Really like it then. like it during the pre-spawn a lot, can cover a lot of water fast. Once you dial in on how they're relating to the grass, it becomes pretty simple. A lot of times they won't take a spinnerbait as good as they'll take that bladed jig. So it's definitely something I'm throwing, and I throw it two ways. I throw one on 17-pound fluoro, and I throw the other on 50-pound braid.
All right, next question. Hey, Frank, how do you attack a grass lake that the weeds have been killed off?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that actually happens a lot, especially on lakes with a lot of pleasure boaters, because they have the houses around the lake and they pay all the lake things and they complain about the grass. What you have to do is you have to avoid the sprayed grass, because when they spray grass, it dies in mass. And it depletes the oxygen out of the water. Then as the grass falls to the bottom and decays, you get the black gooey slime, and no fish wants to be in the black gooey slime, so they leave the areas. You get outside of the grass edges, more hard bottom stuff, and then go back to where they sprayed grass a month or two earlier, and you'll get the new shoots of grass coming up, and then you can fish new carpeting that's on the bottom. It won't be very tall, but it'll be carpeted like. And the bass love the new carpet. The bass love that stuff. So that's kind of how I approach sprayed lakes where they kill the grass. Sometimes they have these grass mowers that come in. Like I know a lot of places in New York have these grass mowers. They come in and they literally mow this grass down. Those places are wild, because once everything settles and the mowers are done mowing, they're literally mowing straight edge canals through this grass. And that can be really cool fishing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I've seen those things before. Doug also wants to know, what does fresh sprayed grass look like?
Well, if it's freshly sprayed, it looks like grass, but it won't be a couple of days before it starts to turn brown orange and then black and gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when they spray that stuff, it doesn't take long to get rid of it.
Hey, here's an interesting question. I have a question for Matt and Frank. When are you going to dump Mark? He's holding y'all back. So when are you going to dump me, guys? Obviously, I don't know what the heck I'm talking about.
No, you're not going to be dumped, dude. You're the heartbeat of this show.
Show doesn't exist without you.
That's right. Mark is here to stay, boys and girls. Just remember that.
Jeez.
It's a tough crowd. I'm glad I'm not doing stand-up comedy.
Thick skin. If you guys want to run it, you guys have at it, man. Studio is yours.
No, I'm out
of here. No,
I'm not that
leaving.
Smart, dude. I'm not that smart. Stay where you're at, please. God, please.
Man, people beat me up just because I have a difference of opinion on blue dots, that and everything else. Oh, and I don't know anything about fishing, and I can't catch fish, and the only thing I like to do is throw a Carolina rig and a top water. I have no idea what's going on in the bass fishing world. I've been around it for 30 years, and that means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is your experience and your knowledge base, because here, let's be honest. For over 30 years, you've talked to the best of the best about this sport. You've been in boats with them. You've been in and out. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that your knowledge base is a lot deeper than you're articulating and then that people give you credit for, which kind of irritates me a little bit, because you guys, come on. You got to give a guy his due, man.
Hey, I'm an angry basketball coach that teaches and bowls every now and then.
So we're gonna have a section, the angry basketball coach segment.
No. Let's see here. Sean had a question. He said I skipped it. Oh, here it is, right here.
Fish in the bank.
Yeah. Frank, where should I target from the bank on Lake Michigan if they have left the harbors?
Wow. I hope you can make long casts. I mean, long. It's, you know what, you're gonna have to pick sections of the bank that have steeper breaks on them, so you have a little deeper water closer to shore. If you're on some of the, like, especially on, did he say Lake Michigan?
Yeah, you said Lake Michigan.
Some of Lake Michigan has these massive sand flats that go way out. You're going to have to kind of avoid those sand flats and get to more of the rocky terrain where the bass have, 6-7 foot depth range within a cast of the bank. A lot of the bass on Lake Michigan use those shallow areas, especially if the wind is right for a few days where there's no wave action on that particular section of the bank. The smallies will move in on that stuff. But you need deep transition nearby to fish that you can catch them on the sand flats, but it's a crapshoot. This puts you in the more of a high percentage area from shore, and if you can target around marina mouths and stuff, that's a good bet because they're usually dredged. So that's also a good bet.
All right, cool stuff. We're gonna take one more phone call. I got a few phone calls, and then I'll give away a hat. Once again, we keep reminding you, but we have to. When does the store close for the merch, Matt? Sunday, right?
The 18th.
Isn't that Sunday? I didn't even look. Yes, that would be midnight Sunday.
Midnight Sunday or midnight Saturday?
I think it's midnight Sunday. It runs through that day. All right, but don't take any chances. Go ahead and order your stuff today or tomorrow.
Yeah, we also got Canada figured out. So if you're in Canada listening, you're good to go ordering. But Korea and Australia, you're out of luck.
South Korea. We did have requests on that. So
yeah, sorry.
All right, here we go. From the comments on YouTube, Matt and Frank, best hook for a drop shot. Using 10-pound line, I have issues with the hook sticking out. Constantly have to pop the knot through to keep the hook in a correct position.
Okay. I use a Gamakatsu 1/0 drop shot hook for my open drop shot hook when I'm nose hooking a bait or wacky rigging it. 1/0 Gamakatsu drop shot hook, I've found so far nothing better. Once I pop the knot through the eye, it stays there. The other thing I do is I'll take some fly tying thread, and I'll wrap the fly tying thread where the eye of the hook meets the hook shank, because a lot of problems guys have when they break fish off with the drop shot, the line wraps around the hook and gets wedged in between where the eye of the line tie and the hook shaft meet. So I'll fill that up with fly tying thread so the line can't get in there. Just a little trick.
Interesting. Matt, what about you?
I think we're using different hooks primarily because you're using a drop shot hook mainly, and I use a drop shot hook, but I use a straight shank and Texas rig a lot because I'm using more of a worm. So I looked it up because I have to get the name right. It's the light wire, the Shinfukai light wire worm hook with the tin keeper in a 2/0. You will destroy them. It's thin wire. Like you can, if you bury one in the roof of the mouth, which you typically do, you have to get pliers to take it out, and then it's kind of bent up. But that thing, like you can fish it on a 4.5 inch, like a shaken squirrel or a robo worm or anything like that, all the way up to a 6 inch, and it sticks them. Like all my videos, that's what I use exclusively. And then if you want to make it where the hook's a little bit more exposed, you just kind of massage it back and forth through your plastic so the hook point sticks out, helps the bait stand straight out like that. And then if you want to make it weedless, you just bury it into the plastic if you're fishing it to where the hook point doesn't stick out. But that's my confidence hook on a drop shot. Now I will use #1 Gamakatsu drop shot split shot hook when I go up north, just based on the guys that I've talked to. Just that standard one that's been around forever is the one that most of the smallmouth gurus
try. The 1/0.
Is it a little smaller?
It's a little bigger.
A little bigger.
It's one size bigger.
Okay.
It's
but it's the same hook, right?
Same hook. It's the 1/0 drop shot hook. You'll be really pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
All right. From the YouTube comments, are there weather conditions that make grassfish easier to find in their relation to the grass? Frank?
Oh boy. No, because if you find them, you find them. The weather conditions don't really matter. However, if you've got a overcast cloudy day with very little wind, you could run down a grass edge with a Super Spook Junior, and everywhere you get a blow up, you could mark that spot, and then you could come back later with flipping and pitching techniques and go in that area and catch more bass. So that in one instance could help you find and locate them in a grass flat. The other thing is if it's raining and drizzling out, fast baits like spinner baits and stuff like that work really good to cover water, because as the overcast skies come in, the bass start to roam a little bit more. As it's sunny, they bury up down and they stay put more. So you just have to use the weather to your advantage when it changes.
Cool. All right, Matt, you're going to be here Monday, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and Tuesday.
And Tuesday. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday next week. Wednesday, we will have a guest host. And I think on Wednesday, we're going to try and get some live coverage of what's going on at ICAST next week.
You're not going. Are you going, Mark?
No.
Are you going,
No.
Frank?
I hope not.
That's an expensive plane ticket right now if he's planning on doing something at the last minute.
Yeah, we're not going to go.
I had someone ask me, the paint shop, right? You design the colors, but it's not like you're in the basement painting them and then send them to Pradco and then they put them on the website.
No, I do some of the colors on the paint shop, not all of them. Some of them.
But the ones that you do, you're not like painting them. You're designing the color and then they're painting it and putting it up. Right. Okay, because someone asked like, "Hey, can I spray?" And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's not like in his basement doing colors.
Here's what I do, real quick. I'm going to sum it up. I make up a color. I paint mock-ups. I write down the formula, what colors I mixed, what pearls, et cetera, and what order I lay them out on the bait. If I make a mask, if I have a pattern and I make the mask, I send a copy of the mask, the pattern. So they get actual physical copies, a written down formula, and everything I used and how I mixed it, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4 pearl, this, whatever. And then they go off of it turns into a color by number.
I got you.
And then they produce them. There's no way that I could.
That's what I thought.
There's no way. I would never be out of my basement. I would be there 24 hours a day, round the clock, nonstop painting. And that is not what I want to do.
Nice. All right. A lot of stuff going on. Make sure you check out all the action over on Bassmaster.com of the SLR. We got the NPFL going on also live at the same time from Pickwick, right, Matt? Is that
Correct.
right?
I just pulled it up. I got no money on the NPFL Derby, so I haven't looked at that.
He's trying to get gas money, folks. All right. So Monday, Matt and I will be in studio. Make sure you check out what the schedule is. It will be posted very, very late on Sunday because I'm going to do – and by the way, folks, Matt getting me dialed in on a little bit of finesse fishing while I'm at Broken Bow. The dink and dunk. We're going to try it out, Frank. See if it works.
It's going to work.
On a deep, clear water reservoir here in Oklahoma, getting away for a couple of days. And the other thing is they have water willow in this lake. And the water willow seems to produce some very ferocious bites during this time of the year. And then a little
dial-a-bass. Sounds a lot like your dial-a-bass pattern.
I did. It is. I have no problem. I'm going down there for fun. I want to catch some fish. I don't want to
if only you had
drown a bobber. Come on.
If only you had a warning cone orange super spook.
Oh, wait, he does.
I do, and I'm going to actually try and catch some fish on it this
orange
weekend.
Thing, dude. Throw the one from the paint shop.
It's tied up and ready, dude. It's tied on and ready. Both of them are. So we'll see if I can force feed a little 12-inch bass to eat the orange construction cone, if possible.
God, that goes against all my whole grain of making colors.
I know. Looks horrible. So that's kind of the scoop next week. And then Matt is off to, what is this, Northern Open number 2, right?
Yeah, I'm still alive, so I got to catch him at Oneida. And then it all comes down to the St. Lawrence River.
All right.
Got to catch them at Oneida.
All right, Frank, you putting new videos, anything new coming out here shortly
Yeah,
on LureNet?
Yeah, there's going to be some new ones. A crankbait one released probably 2 weeks ago. They put out a little teaser about how to put hooks properly on a crankbait. I got a Flick Shake show coming out. I did a Carolina rig show. That one's not going to air yet. I'm doing another one today after this show. This one will air first. I have a sequence. The other one's a little more technical. So this one's going to be exactly the one I'm shooting today is going to be exactly how to fish this rig the right way. And the next one is going to be how to follow up a crankbait bite on a Carolina rig.
And define these. This is just LureNet. LureNet.
Yeah, LureNet YouTube. And then you could go to LureNet YouTube. You'll see all the videos posted, or you could go to LureNet and type in my name, or LureNet YouTube and type in my name. But if you go LureNet YouTube, they all should pop up in a big line across the top. And there's a lot of videos out now. There is.
That's awesome.
All right, man. Good stuff. Make sure you check that out, lurenet.com. And we will be back next Thursday, and we will have an Angler of the Year. We will see if John Sukup can win 3 out of 4, right, Matt? Is that right?
Correct.
3 out of 4 on the NPFL? And a lot of stuff to talk about next week. I can promise you it will not be brought up. No more blue dot talk. Done. Finished. We are moving on. All right, Frank.
Thank goodness.
Anything else, Frank?
I'm anxious to get out and catch some fish.
Yeah, you're going fishing.
I'm going fishing.
Yeah, me too, man.
Don't catch
me too. All right, Matt, we will see you on Monday. Everyone,
right,
thanks for calling in. I do want to say, Keith from Kentucky, shoot me an email, mark@basszone.com. I will send you one of the brand new BTL hats coming your way. So, Keith, thanks for all the people that did call in today. Great questions on the instant feedback and on the comments on YouTube. We appreciate the fans. We appreciate Frank. And Matt and I will be back on Monday. So everybody have a safe weekend. That's it. We're out of here.